and welcome to a very auspicious day as we now prepare to enter a new gate, as we have closed the last gate of discernment, the gate of understanding what is and is not certain types of behavior. The new gate that we are going through, and basically closing off the first section here of Shmiras HaLashon, is the gate of Torah. And in this chapter, this very first chapter of this gate, we're going to look at how learning Torah is the way to fix what has been broken or what has been dinged or what has been, however, the word used in the title is a pagam. Somehow it has been lessened. The person has been lessened through Lashon Hara. And how great is the expectation to sit and learn Torah. So we got a lot to talk about over here. So big ideas, big things brewing in this gate. This is probably the most important section in learning all these laws of Lashon Hara. Because, just to kind of give a quick introduction to it, no matter who you've spoken to or from whom you've read this material in the centuries in which this material is being discussed, right here, the idea of learning Torah is the way in which one improves all of their midos. One of my favorite quotes is, one doesn't just learn Bava Kama, one lives Bava Kama. So, meaning the Masechta of Bava Kama from the Talmud, it talks about damages and ways in which things are ruined through your actions, or that your animals can affect these people's property, and your actions affect people's property. You need to be aware of how your actions translate into real life issues. And we've been doing that for the past two gates, but this is the first time we're really talking about how important it is to take the theoretical into the reality. We're making applications of it. These are fundamental, foundational principles that we'll be discussing now. So we've gone from the whole talking about it and what those philosophies look like to here's how you take the rules into your life. Okay, and the Chafetz Chaim opens by saying there is one final, or yet another, general, unique principle to rectify evil speech, vile speech, Lashon Hara. That's learning Torah. Let's look. The Gemara says, we quote this Gemara 8,000 times, the Gemara in Erechim, 15b. If you need to review a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in these gates, going to Erechim, page 15 and 16, you'll see a ton of this material. So, and we saw a ton of it in the first section of Shmiras HaLashon, about what is considered Lashon Hara. Rav Chama. So Rav Chama says the following. Okay, Rav Chama, the son of Rabbi Chanina. What need to be done to rectify the actions of a person who says vile things, who speaks Lashon Hara? Well, if he's wise and has learned Torah, then he'll learn more Torah. Why? Because it says in Proverbs, in Mishlei 15:4, it says, the healing of the tongue is the tree of life. Okay, so how do you heal the tongue with that? The Gemara says the Eitz Chaim is nothing other than Torah, because that's what we say. Also, a verse in Proverbs 3:18, it says, "It is the tree of life for those who hold to it." Okay, so since we say Eitz Chaim here and Eitz Chaim there, tree of life here, tree of life there, everything's a tree of life, all referring to Torah. Okay, and then we also further say, also in the book of Proverbs 18:21, that death and life are in the hands of the tongue. Not that your tongue literally has hands, but it means that the methods employed by your speech can create all types of situations for other people. And you can both acquire eternal death, and therefore the verse is warning you or advising you against that. And someone who wishes to heal their tongue, they should eat from the tree of life, that being Torah. Eating that will cause you to live forever. And he's playing off the original verse in the book of Genesis, in Sefer Bereshis, that's what Adam and Chava explained was the gift of the Eitz HaChaim, that they took and they eat it, and they would live, they would become wise, and they would eat and live forever. Nonetheless, a person must be diligent from now on to keep themselves from the sin itself, the way most people do it, by accident, which is that you would put something accidentally into your mouth that could kill you. And then you're going to try to fix yourself with some type of healing potion. And the truth is that it's always better to not eat the poisonous stuff to begin with, the deadly poisonous stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay? So learning Torah is the process by which one does not come to say Lashon Hara to begin with. Okay, and like Gemara says further, how do you resolve the Lashon Hara? So we say that the wise person engages in more learning. And the reason why that makes sense is from another Gemara. And this other Gemara is in Sanhedrin 92b. It says that book of Job, Eov, it says on 5:7, a person is born for working, born to work. Okay, so what does that mean? What are you busy working on? Are you working on labor, like manual labor, or are you working on things that you would service with your mouth? Like you're saying, I'm engaged in a procedure right now, but I'm just talking. What are we talking about? So they say when you compare it to the other verse, Proverbs 16:26, it says, because he is being born by things said of his mouth, meaning that by born, meaning that he is being carried along by the things that he says, okay? Or the actual, another way to translate that would be he is saddled by it, okay? So that's another way to translate it. The idea being that it's things that he is engaged with and is busy with using speech. And I still wouldn't know if it's talking about speaking Torah or speaking crazy things. This is timely learning with Daf Yomi study in Shavuos right now. Yes, they're just beginning that. Today is that day, I think, when Shavuos starts. Makos is a great one because Makos talks about when you receive the beatings for violating stuff. But Shavuos is talking about how to prevent yourself from being caught in the violation of oaths. It's a very different subject matter. 1 second. And I wouldn't know if I'm saying just, simple things or if I'm speaking Torah. So when I make the statement that I just made, clearly I'm talking about learning Torah. That's why I'm here. And the idea is that a person should accustom themselves to have a nature where they are constantly engaging their speech as a receptacle for things that are good, and not to be lazy about that, okay? And like the rest of your body is kind of lazy, all right? Because let's say you need to get yourself up to do something, you need to motivate yourself, but not with speech, right? Speech is easy, okay? And so when we say you're engaged in the burden of speaking, what we're trying to get you to understand is that this ability is in order for you to learn Torah. And therefore it needs to be addressed and corrected. So that way you won't come to use it for Lashon Hara or use it for an evil purpose. Only for Torah learning. And if I didn't tell you that this was the case, you would probably be tripped up by things that are prohibited to say. And that's something that's kind of normal for people to do, because the vessel by which this is used is normally not closed. It normally needs to be open. Okay, and so therefore you have to be careful about what this receptacle wants you to do, or convinces you to try to do things. And so therefore, what we are trying to get you to understand is that however much effort you're putting into learning Torah, that is based on your obligation of doing that, your personal obligation to do that. And we're going to explain exactly what that obligation looks like in future parts of this gate. And also, we're going to explain how one could become lazy in completing those tasks, and especially when it relates to speech-related things, and those types of speech are prohibited forms of speech. And we've mentioned those previously. And if you don't remember that, there's a few hours of videos that you can go review. That's not in the Chafetz Chaim. That's my comment. I should put like little. I should have a little meme that pops up. It's like, this is a meta comment over here. And so too in our very days, that as a result of our unbearably high number of sins, that we have learned, we are no longer so thoroughly engaged in Torah learning. Now, when he writes this is in Europe in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Baruch Hashem, we have way more people learning now than ever learned in Europe previously. The number of people in learning these days is infinitely larger. And it's important for a person to become that much more engaged in the learning processes. And this is made clear in the Yerushalmi. Okay, it says the following. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai used to say, if you see a generation where they have basically relented on learning Torah, then you should be the person who stands up and makes them see what learning Torah looks like. And you will get reward for that. And in some ways, you can help to demonstrate the incredible obligation of a person to Torah and to the reward that's attached to learning it in both this world and the next. And so therefore, let's point out that it's widely known that the main focus of learning Torah is not just the learning itself, but the learning that brings you to do the right thing. And that is a Torah commandment, which we learn. We say it in the Shema every day. This is in Devarim 5:1. Learn them and guard them to perform them. Okay? So, meaning that you should learn them enough that you can remember them. We don't say remember, but we're saying you should guard, which is guarding them to do them. Okay? So, therefore, you should be fluent in them. The rabbis further say, and this is the first Mishnah in Peah, that these are the things that a person eats in this world and they get reward for them in the next. And the reward for learning Torah is equal to everything that they list in that Mishnah. We're not going to go through the whole Mishnah now. Okay? Because nothing compares to learning Torah. We say further, this is in Mishlei, all right, in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2. I have given you good understanding, given good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah. My Torah is what I have taught you. And so the author there, Shlomo Melech, is saying that I have taught you so much. Pay attention to what I'm telling you. And the point is that both good and both Torah are all connected. And that's because we are aware that a person who is bereft of Torah are considered like a poor person. And until he says that it's something that is of value, he doesn't think it's important to have it, even though he's himself personally is bereft of all of that Torah learning that he or she should have. And so too, anything that is considered valuable to you or important to you. Right? Maybe a truly wealthy person wouldn't see the value in it themselves. However, something which is valuable to even that wealthy person, that may not be as valuable in the eyes of the king or the government. He says the word king here. He literally says king. And so too, something that is super valuable in the eyes of the king wouldn't be as important as, let's say, conquering another country. It's just, what are we going to do today? what are we going to do today, brain? Well, same thing we do every day. Take over the world. So he doesn't say that. That's meta. That's me meta commenting on that. And that is not even considered what's important in the eyes of a pure angel, an angel of Hashem, because there are those angels whose experience or their influence is over many miles and thousands of miles. And we say that in the Gemara in Chulin on 91b, and we say over there, based on this, that it is good advice. We call it lekach tov. And therefore, you should take to heart and be familiar with the fact that the good that you are receiving from this is tremendous. Until it is said about you that all the entire worlds that are around me are considered as not, meaning they're not important, even though the Torah itself is called good. And really the truth is that that's the most desired thing, and the greatest good becomes somewhat obscured by the Holy One, blessed be He. And He Himself delights in what was created with the Torah on a regular basis. Okay, and it says that Torah by Hashem is considered the plaything of Hashem, that Hashem regularly engages with it and interacts with it. And therefore it's called my Torah. Do not spurn my Torah, and do not forsake it. Because the truth is, there is no limit to the reach of the holiness of Torah. And the rabbis themselves say this in the Talmud, that there are 600,000 explanations for every single verse in the Torah. And we say that in the Midrash of letters of Rabbi Akiva, that the light that emanates from the holy names of the Holy One, blessed be He, emanates to the highest parts of the heavens. And that is 21,000 miles, or parts. They're called parts, so I always call them miles. And that's the same number of ways in which we understand God's name indicating eternity. And the rabbis further state, and this is in the collection of Midrashim on Tehillim, that Rabbi Elazar says that the Torah was not actually given in order, meaning in chronological order. For were given in total order, everyone would have seen and read through it. Had they read through it in the magical order which was created, they would be able to recreate life from the dead and to do all types of wonders. And therefore, the full order of the Torah was hidden from them. However, the Holy and Blessed be He knows that. And how do we know that? Because it says in the book of Isaiah, it says that it shall be as I shall read it. Meaning that whenever I read, this is the meta explanation of that midrash that the Chafetz Chaim is not saying himself. Meaning that as he reads the Torah, things become the reality. And this verse in Isaiah in chapter 44, verse 7, is the idea that Hashem brings forth things as read in the Torah. Okay, continuing right along over here, that the main focus of the next Midrash says that we see that the Torah is always compared to water, and water seems to flow forever, and that's the way Torah goes as well, because Torah in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 22, is compared to water. It heals the entire flesh, just like water makes the impure pure again. So too the words of Torah hide the impure things from the person and bring it to purity again. And we also say in the book of Tehillim, book of Psalms 19:10, the fear of God is pure, And so therefore, just like water purifies the person, so too you are purified by the learning of Torah as well. Okay, and from everything that's ever affected you to do something wrong. And that's even if you were originally pushing it away, so that was pushed away even by, you're kicking it away by your foot, or you're walking away from it by your head. It will impact you from head to toe. And the person doesn't become purified until their entire body from head to toe and every single part of them is covered with the water. And so therefore they shouldn't have anything interrupting them in the water. And so too with Torah, the truth of Torah should not be obscured or blocked by anything. And we see that when it says that the words of Torah should be on your heart, which is in the book of Devarim, book of Deuteronomy 6:6, that's what we're saying. And just like water replenishes the feelings of the person to make them feel better, that's what Torah does as well. Okay, and that, what it does is it turns you from the bad behaviors to the good ones. Okay, and we see this also again in the book of Psalms 19:8, that the Torah of Hashem, his teachings, are perfect and revitalize the soul. And so too, waters are technically free and available to everyone. So too is Torah. Okay, and it says, how do we know that everyone should come to Torah? It's in the book of Isaiah 55:1. All thirsty come to water. And so therefore, the water is something that's for free, so too Torah is freely available. And so therefore we say in the book of Proverbs, describing this more, it's also more valuable than anything you could ever imagine. So it's readily available and more valuable, just like water. And we see clearly that the person is only created for the learning of Torah. And we see this further in the Gemara in Sanhedrin 92b that we keep quoting, that when we say that a person is created for engaging, which is why we need to circumcise our hearts to be pure, remove all other obstructions, receive the Torah. Yes, there is a lot of visuals referring to removing the blockages of why we can't be better people, referring to how the Torah does not enter our thoughts and our hearts. In fact, the whole book of Psalms, the book of Tehillim, starts with the most praiseworthy person is the one who spends his time learning the Torah and does not engage with people who distract them from those good behaviors that are in the Torah. But back in our text here, that when we continue and looking at that Gemara, we just quoted that we are meant to be people engaged in busy work. Our busy work is not to simply engage in physical labor and not to be saddled or born in the labors of our mouth. And I still don't know that we're talking about Torah until we say that, like we say in the book of Yehoshua, in the 1st chapter and the 5th verse in, the words of the Torah, of this book, the Torah, shall never pass from your lips. And so therefore, we see clearly we were created to engage in Torah learning. And that is the main drive of a person's soul. And that's what sustains them. And we say further that Rabbi Shimon used to say, this is in the Sifri on Devarim 4:9, that one should be careful and guard their soul. What does that mean? It's like someone who's standing as a bird. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. One who is trapped by a bird. One who is like a bird trapped like a king. And the king puts the bird into a cage. We've seen this story once before. And he says, be careful with this bird, okay? And don't lose it. And the bird shouldn't be much more valuable than the smallest amount of money available in the kingdom. And losing it would be like losing small amounts of money. However, you have to consider it like you've lost everything. And so too we say, that's why the Torah is not considered something, loose and easy to replace. Because it seems like it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. And we say further that the world is only exists for the learning of Torah. And we see this is from the book of Yirmiyahu, where he says that if not for my covenant, if not for the covenant I made with day and night, that even the rules set up to keep the heavens and the earth going would end. And this is something too repeated in the Zohar, that everyone who engages with Torah on a regular basis will share in the world to come. And it'll be considered as if he had built those worlds himself. Because it's through Torah that the world was built and fashioned, as we say in the book of Mishlei, in Proverbs 3:19, that Hashem, through wisdom, founded the earth. And that wisdom is Torah. And if you occupy yourself with it, that in turn fashions the world and keeps it going. And you should see further that it was with a powerful spirit that the Holy One, blessed be HaKadosh Baruch Hu, made the world. And it's through the spirit of learning Torah that it continues to endure. And so those who learn Torah are those who keep it enduring. And this is explicitly stated in Parshas Tzav. Okay, it says that Rabbi Elazar used to open up his statement in the Midrash in the following way. It says, I have placed my words in your mouth, and with the covering of my hand I have covered you. This is from Isaiah 51:16. And so we learn from this that if you occupy yourself with Torah and your lips repeat Torah words, then the Holy One, blessed be He, will cause Himself to guard over you and spread His presence as well, as if it were spread like wings. Furthermore, this causes the world to be enduring, and the Holy One Himself will be happy and content, as if the heavens and earth were placed on that day. Okay, we are almost done. Just checking to see. And so therefore, we see it's what's an interesting warning in the book Chovas HaLevavos, where it's important for a person to take note of the following, that even if he were to stand before an earthly king, and he had something that was written out very specifically, okay, and there was a very profound thing, it would be really disconcerting if he couldn't understand it. And then if it was super profound, he would then make sure that he focused on understanding it. And so this is how every book should function amongst all people, is that you should be focusing on its words and on its content, which is exactly what the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, did with the Torah. And so therefore, a number of people suffer and stumble from the following sin, because they go and they try to, understand what Hashem is doing, and they're only guessing at it. Okay? And instead they focus on other things. They go after the gods of silver and gold, which is mentioned in the book of Daniel, chapter 5, 23 and 24. Okay? And because they're focusing on that, you don't focus on what Hashem wants. And so the rabbis say in the Midrash Eba Rabasi, in the opening statements, it says that the Holy One, blessed be He, was not going to hold everybody accountable for Avodah Zarah initially. He also wasn't going to hold everybody accountable for the prohibited relationships and for murder as well. We say those are the three main reasons why they lost the first temple. And we said that was instead the thing that caused them to lose the land was the lack of studying Torah. And the prophet Yirmiyahu says that too in chapter 9, verses 11 and 12. He says, why was the land destroyed? And it's because they forsook my Torah. They did not focus on learning Torah. And so therefore, that's why people who became indifferent to basically ignoring Torah learning, that was what the great transgression was that causes us to lose the land of Israel. And through this behavior, it causes you that the cause of this sin caused everyone to engage in more sins. Okay? And therefore, they were not strengthening their children in Torah, and that then escalated into removing strongly and deeply rooted mountains, meaning the Torah itself. And so therefore, we're going to go over a number of the statements of the rabbis of the Talmud and remind us of how important Torah learning is and how great it is to focus on it. So that's the beginning chapter, talking about how important it is to learn Torah, and we will pick up next week with the reward for learning Torah. Thank you for joining today. Look forward to seeing you next time.